Paolo was driving his Subaru when the driver of an Alfa Romeo failed to yield and turned in front of him at an intersection. Paolo hit the brakes and swerved as soon as he noticed the SUV turning in front of him, but he slid into it anyway. Even though he was later diagnosed with a concussion, he managed to call 911. He also received whiplash and his Subaru was totaled in the impact. His airbags deployed and he was taken to the emergency room to be x-rayed. Fortunately, no fractures were found. He wanted to thank the Markham Fire Department, York Region Paramedic Services, and the York Regional Police for responding to the scene, and the staff of the Markham Stouffville Hospital for ensuring he was taken care of. This submitter began driving when his light turned green, but the driver of a white Mercedes from the left ran their red light and turned too wide, striking our submitter's Mazda 3. Even though our submitter came to a complete stop, the driver of the white Mercedes turned into them without even attempting to slow down. She told our submitter she hadn't seen his bright red Mazda. Thankfully, nobody was injured. Thanks to the dashcam footage, the insurance claim was quickly resolved and our submitter's car was fixed in 2 months for about $14,000 US. Jessica was getting ready to turn into a Target parking lot when the driver of a Dodge SUV decided to cut traffic by using Jessica's turn lane. The lady even tried waving at Jessica to tell her to get out of her way. Jessica held her ground and, hilariously, the Dodge driver ended up in the same place in line where she'd started. Tyler had just merged onto the interstate. After getting up to speed, a large commercial grill appeared directly in front of his Dodge Charger. Thankfully, his new tires were able to handle his severe swerving. He called to report the debris, but another vehicle had hit it shortly after Tyler had avoided it. Mike was headed down a California highway with his toddler in his Honda CR-V. Suddenly, he watched a driver in the leftmost lane cross the entire highway before colliding with a BMW 7 Series in the exit lane. With his toddler along for the ride, Mike wasn't able to stop on the side of the busy highway. Fortunately, the accident didn't look too severe. Charles and his girlfriend were talking about maniacs on the road while discussing her upcoming driving test. Little did they know they were about to witness some maniacal driving right in front of them.
What the f is this car doing?
He didn't even signal.
What the f?
What the f?
The f?
What the?
The f are these two doing?
The driver of a Honda absent-mindedly cut off a Jeep while going through an intersection. The Jeep driver reacted by cutting off Charles, then cutting off the Honda before brake-checking them both. Well, it looks like what Charles had been telling his girlfriend was correct. You can never tell what other drivers are going to do next. Brian was headed down a Kansas highway when he crested a hill in his Ford F-250. When he did, he found his lane already occupied by an oncoming semi-truck. Brian took to the shoulder to avoid a head-on collision with the semi-truck as it struggled to pass another while going uphill. The trucker even flashed his headlights at Brian to thank him for moving out of his way. Scott is a pizza delivery driver. While he was returning from making a delivery, the driver of a work truck merged into his lane without signaling. The other driver's insurance provider tried to get Scott to accept 25% liability, but his insurance provider sent them the dashcam footage and told them that wasn't gonna happen. Scott's $40 US dashcam saved him from paying for $5,000 in repairs. He said, "Get one, now." We agree. Check the link in our description for our favorite models and you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. Alex was driving down a highway in Ohio when he watched a Chevy leave the road after slowly drifting across the entire highway. He's not sure if the driver was asleep or distracted, but after getting back on the road, he continued as if nothing had happened. Alex says our Wham Bam Tesla Cam channel is what inspired him to get a dash cam. Thanks, Alex. Fran was on her way home from work and was stopped at a red light. When the light turned green, a BMW driver ran their red light right in front of Fran. Fran laid on the horn as the BMW drove by. If she'd accelerated off the line any sooner, her Corolla would have been T-boned. This happened right after she'd gotten her car back after another driver had ripped off her bumper cover. This submitter was leaving a parking lot when a Honda driver backed into him.
You've been Honda bumped! Honda bumped!
That's a confirmed Honda bump. The collision scratched our submitter's Vauxhall Corsa and left a dent in the Honda. The Honda driver blamed our submitter, but his dashcam footage proved she was in the wrong. Emily was obeying the speed limit of 45 miles per hour when she approached a green light. As she crossed the intersection, she encountered this week's Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive!
The Tesla driver ran their red light, turning in front of Emily and forcing her to brake and swerve to avoid a collision. Remember, in most places in America, you can turn right at a red light, but only after stopping and only if traffic is clear. Joshua's parents were on their way to pick him up from school. As the light they were at turned green, Joshua's father pulled into the intersection before being forced to stop.
Fudge!
A CAA-authorized contractor blew through a red light, and he would have hit Joshua's parents' Durango if his dad hadn't slammed on the brakes. Joshua sent along a shout-out for his whole family. They have a tradition of watching all the new Wham Bam videos together every Sunday morning after breakfast. Skylar and his fiancée were driving down a main road after leaving a circus when a Honda Civic went flying past them, traveling well over the speed limit. Skylar turned to his fiancée and said, "That guy's about to crash." Sure enough, a little further down the road, they found the aftermath of a massive accident he'd caused involving no fewer than 5 vehicles. Fortunately, police were quick to respond to the scene. Justin was on his way to school when he watched the driver of an Infiniti lose control while accelerating into a turn. Fortunately, the Infiniti driver was able to regain control without hitting anything. This emitter was headed to a Christmas parade when the driver of a minivan made a right on red without yielding to our submitter. Oh, did I forget to mention his wife was with him? His wife was with him. Fortunately, he was able to slow down fast enough to avoid a collision. Austin was headed home from work when he watched an oncoming driver run a red light to turn across traffic from a straight-only lane. An Infiniti in the rightmost lane couldn't stop quickly enough to avoid a collision. Austin stopped and gave his info to the Infiniti driver so they could get a copy of his dashcam footage. Nate was on his way back to his university, driving below the speed limit due to the heavy rainfall. Suddenly, he noticed a car on the other side of the highway spin completely around twice before ending up in the median. Nate turned around at the next exit and went back to make sure the other driver was okay. They told him they'd hydroplaned and asked for a copy of his dashcam footage. Nate wishes he'd gotten a better view, but he's not hoping for a repeat performance. Jay was headed home from a wedding when a wild traffic barrel appeared on the highway in front of him. Jay was shocked by the barrel, but managed to avoid hitting it. He asked us to shout out his wife Adriana, who also watches our videos with him. Jules was on his way to see Wakanda Forever when he spotted an absolute mess of Teslas in the parking garage. He doesn't know what brought them all here, but they were gone by the time the movie was over. He also said, "Respect for Teslas," and shout out to all the Infiniti Q50 drivers out there. What's a group of Teslas called anyway?